Hey guys, Jamie here. So I wanted to quickly come on and update you. We just about an hour ago got the text of the new stimulus bill. So this new stimulus bill, I went to go look at it. It's 5,593 pages. And part of the reason for that is because it was included with the normal government funding bill. So there's a lot to really get through. So I'm still kind of going through and digesting what's in there. And I am going to continue to bring you guys updates. So make sure to subscribe to this channel so that you get all of the updates as we know them. But there are some really, really important sections in here, specifically on PPP, the Paycheck Protection Program. So I wanted to go ahead and get these out to you because I think a lot of these will be impactful, especially when you're sitting there trying to make a decision on whether to apply for forgiveness, what to do for taxes. So I wanted to go ahead and get this video out there to summarize some of this stuff. So this portion of the new bill is being called the Economic Aid to Hard-Hit Small Businesses, Nonprofits, and Venues. So that's the section of this giant funding bill that relates to PPP and a lot of other stuff. But specifically as it relates to PPP, as we expected, there is the ability now to get a second round of funding. So if you already got a PPP and it's been long gone, you can get a second round of funding. Okay, so you will have to prove a little bit more. Now you have to be able to show a decline in gross receipts of at least 25%. What does that mean? It means you look any quarter of 2020 versus any quarter of 2019. If your gross receipts, money coming in the door, has gone down by at least 25% in any one of those quarters versus the same quarter of last year, that would qualify you for another loan. Of course, you're gonna need to have all those documents. You're probably gonna need a P&L that shows it. You might need some bank statements to prove it out. But ultimately, that's what you're gonna need to be able to show them and try to get a second round of funding. This can also be used on more things. So they've expanded what you can use PPP for. It goes towards more general operating expenses. It can go towards PPE. It can go towards a lot of different things. If you had to retrofit, for example, to have a drive-through window or retrofit an HVAC, anything like that, you are going to be able to use PPP for it. So more to come on these specific requirements, but just know that more things will be eligible to be used. It looks like it is still going to be based off of the same calculation methodology as before, i.e. 2.5 months of payroll. So you will want to make sure that you've kind of calculated that out and know what that is. It is still the Payroll Protection Program, right? The PPP. So the main purpose is still payroll, but you can use it for some other things now. So I think that's good news as well. It's only for businesses now with 300 or less employees. It used to be 500 and less. The second round would only be 300 or less. Also, for those of you who got the first round, if you didn't get enough, I know a lot of people, especially maybe if you were a sole proprietor and you decided to choose the 8-week option. So some banks allowed you to just get 8 weeks worth of pay rather than the 2.5 months. Some people went with that because they didn't have other expenses like rent, utilities to spend the money on. But then when they changed the rules and gave you 24 weeks, you would have been able to get the full amount forgiven if you've gotten the 2.5 months, even as a sole proprietor. So because of that, you can actually go back now. It's written into the law that you would be able to get an increase, request an increase to what your loan should have been. So if you didn't get enough, this could be a good time to go back to your bank and request an increase. You also may want to request an increase perhaps if you got the loan to cover your employees, but perhaps not your own pay. So if you're a sole proprietor, LLC, and you didn't realize at the beginning of this that you could also add in your own pay or your bank didn't tell you, you may be able to add that in. So that may be something useful as well. Now here are two of my absolute favorite things. Tax deductibility. Okay, so for those of you guys who have been following along, you know PPP itself is not considered income. However, the IRS came back and ruled and said that if you pay for expenses out of that PPP, those expenses then aren't deductible, which kind of has basically the same roundabout effect as if it had been taxable as income. So what they've done in this bill is clarified, nope, this is meant to be completely tax-free, so therefore it's not going to be considered income, and it's also not going to be allowed to be excluded from deductions. So you get to take those deductions even when you use the PPP for it. That is a big deal. That could make a big impact. So for those of you guys who might have been planning for it to be taxable or for you not to be able to use those deductions on your taxes, now you can. So that is really, really good news. And if you hadn't been planning for that, well, it's still good news. So that's something that I think was very, very needed, because it could have caused some significant tax surprises for people when they went to actually file their 2020 taxes. I think it's also a really big sigh of relief for tax preparers around the country, because that was going to be a nightmare of trying to track and actually not take those deductions for those expenses. So it's going to be so much more simplified. I'm really glad to see that in here. The other thing that is hidden, it is hidden, and I had to really hunt and peck for this one, you guys, but it is in there. The EIDL advance. For those of you who got both a PPP and an EIDL advance, you probably know that your EIDL advance gets deducted from your PPP forgiveness, meaning your EIDL advance becomes a PPP loan. So if you've already gone through that forgiveness process, you know that they probably made your EIDL advance into a PPP loan. If you got a $1,000 advance and a $20,000 PPP loan, you got your PPP loan forgiven, but you ended up with a $1,000 loan that related to the EIDL advance. That is going away. They are removing that clause. And here's what's great about this, you guys. They're removing the clause for everyone. So it looks like the way that it's written, if you got a PPP loan under the original CARES Act and you got an EIDL advance, you will not have to have that subtracted from your forgiveness. If you already have, more than likely you should be able to get that loan forgiven. So if you have already gone through the forgiveness process and have a portion that was unforgiven that was related to your EIDL advance, you should be able to, once this bill passes. It's not passed yet. It will be probably relatively shortly. But once this bill passes, you will be able to get that waived, or you should be able to. And for those of you who apply for forgiveness in the future, they will not deduct your advance, i.e. you are able to kind of double dip, as it were, and get both the EIDL advance and the PPP loan. So that is really good news for a lot of people that weren't sure why they were having, $1,000, $2,000, $10,000 of their PPP loan unforgiven, and it was related to these EIDL advances, and they have remedied that. And I think it's just going to be a lot simpler and a lot easier from the standpoint of the banks as well. So that was something I was really, really glad to see in here. So that's really the bulk of what I'm seeing. There is more than that, and there's more to come, more specifics. Again, the section just on PPP is pages upon pages upon pages. So more to come on all of this, but I wanted to bring some of these highlights to you guys so that you would know them right away. Also, if you're a nonprofit, they now are eligible to get PPP loans. So these PPP loans can be achieved for nonprofits. While we're on the topic of the EIDL advance, I will also say they did clarify that EIDL advances are not considered income, and you can still deduct expenses paid with them as well. So that was really good. In the absence of that, we assumed that EIDL advances, because they are grants, were going to be taxed as income, but it looks like they are not. So that's really good. It seems like the direction that they're going with a lot of these grants and loans and forgivable loans is to essentially have no tax consequences on them, which is really, really good news. So more to come, but I wanted to bring you guys kind of the highlights, the updates on what's going on with PPP, and make sure to subscribe so that you can see further updates as we continue to comb through the bill and really understand all the things that are in it. Again, hopefully this will be passed as of right now, as of today. It's December 21st. It has not been passed, but it is likely to pass within the next couple of days and be signed into law. So we should see some of these changes probably coming to fruition in early January. So if I were to guess, I bet PPP will open again probably around early January. So hopefully this was helpful for you guys. Make sure to keep in touch. If you're not part of it, go check out my Financial Literacy for Women Business Owners Facebook group. I've linked it down below. And we are having lots of conversations over there about all of this, and I'm keeping you guys updated there as well. So even if you are a man, you are welcome to come. We are an inclusive group. So I'll talk to you guys later. Bye.